Okay, today we're going to use Photoshop to composite two images together to make it look like basically a head's been broken open and it's made out of some sort of ceramic material. So I'm going to open up two photos, and the pictures I'm going to open up is a picture of my own self, and I'm going to move this to a new window. And I'm also going to open up the picture of a broken glass right here. I'm going to move this to a new window as well. So now I've got these two pictures. The first thing I'm going to do is just adjust the levels of this picture a little bit. So I'm just going to go to a picture or image, adjustments, and levels. And I'm just going to turn up the darkness of this. So I'm going to slide this middle bar to the right a little bit just to darken it up a little bit. I'm going to click OK. Now what I want to do is eliminate the background so that it is no longer a regular background. And I've got it on background layer right now, and so I'm going to double click the background layer and click OK, and that's going to unlock the layer, so there'll no longer be a padlock right here. And so now I can get rid of the background. And so I'm going to use my magic wand tool, and I'm going to start out at a low tolerance, maybe around 10, 12, somewhere there, and click, and that's actually a little bit too small, so I'm going to up this up a little bit, maybe 20. And I'm only selecting part of this background right now. It's ending about here, so I'm going to hold shift and click again in this area, and it will add to that selection. I'm also going to click on the other side so that I can get this stuff over here, and as long as I'm holding shift I can add to my selection. Alright, I'm still missing some particles over here, but that's okay, I can get them later. I'm just doing a quick selection first, and so I'm just going to hit backspace on my keyboard, and that's going to turn the background transparent. Now I'm going to just push Control D, or I can go up to Select, Deselect. And I'm going to make a new layer, and I'm going to make this layer on the bottom of my layer of my picture. This is going to be my background, so I'll just name this background. And for the background, I'm just going to use a gradient, and my gradient tool is underneath the paint bucket, so I'm going to grab my gradient tool and I'm going to choose as my gradient dark to light gray. So on this side I'm going to choose kind of a darker gray, and then on this side I'm going to choose a lighter gray like this. So dark to light, click OK. Make sure that you're on linear gradient, and I'm just going to click and drag down just so that I'm going from dark to light. Now that I have this background here, I can see all these little speckles here that I didn't want to be in my original picture. So to get rid of those, I'm just going to mask them away. I'm also going to mask away this little bright halo thing I've got around myself. So I'm going to click on my original layer that my picture is on, and I'm going to create a layer mask. And I'm going to grab my paintbrush tool, and with a black paintbrush and a little bit larger, you can either come up here and choose the size that you want, slide this over, or you can use your bracket keys, which are next to the P key. If I do the right bracket, it will increase the brush size, and left bracket will decrease the brush size. So I'm just going to increase it a bit just so that I can get rid of this stuff pretty quickly. I've got mine at 400 at the moment, and you can use a different number depending. I just don't want to erase myself, so I'm going to erase all this part, these little particles that I see, just to get rid of them. Okay, now that I've got most of that taken away, I'm going to decrease my brush size a little bit so I can get rid of that white glow around my head. Now, actually, a more accurate way to do this, and maybe a recommended way, depending on the background you have, is to use the pen tool to make a line around your head and body, and then make a selection of it. This was just a fast way. You've learned how to eliminate the background in other tutorials, and so the pen tool is actually just about as fast as doing it this way, because I still have to go in and carefully get rid of that little white line. And I'm going to do that here, but you can also use the pen tool, and that will eliminate the need to get rid of that little white line. I see in my mask over here that I've missed a few spots on the right. I'm just going to get those just for good measure, just so that they're out. And I'm going to use my navigation tool, or navigator I should say, If you don't have this window up, you can go to Window and then hit Navigator. And I'm going to zoom in on my picture here, and I'm going to go up to the top and just get rid of these little speckle pieces up here. So again, with the bracket tools, which are next to the P key, I'm going to use the left bracket to decrease my brush size, and then I'm going to come in here and clean this up. Now I want to use a soft brush, but maybe like a hardness of around 40 to 50 or so. And I'm just going to come in here and erase those white areas so that just my hair is still there. Give myself a little haircut here. And if I make a mistake, like let's say I took my ear out like this, I could just switch this to a white brush and bring it back. So we can always switch back and forth as long as we're on our mask. But yeah, I'm just going to come in here and get rid of this white line, use my navigator to navigate down. Still got some speckles of white down here, I want to get rid of those as well. Maybe move my mouse or my brush size a little bit bigger. And go smaller for the finer detail. It's a good weight loss program to erase some of those pounds off your cheeks. And, oh, yeah, that's good. Maybe a little bit back there in the top corner. Here we go. Okay. So now that we've got our picture and it's been cleaned up, the background has been removed and everything like that, I'm going to bring my glass, my broken glass onto the screen. So I'm going to use the Move tool and I'm going to move this glass onto my other picture. So there it is. And what I want to do is make it look like this glass is basically part of my head, that my head has been broken open and this is kind of the insides here. And so I want to size this glass so that it's about the same size as my head from here to here. And I'm going to line it up with it. So the first thing I'm going to do is turn the opacity down for this layer. And I just want to turn it down maybe in the 50s or 60s just so I can see my head through it. And I'm going to go up to Edit, Free Transform, or you can push Control T on the keyboard. And we've all free transformed with the Shift key, and that will pull out in one direction. But what we're going to do is hold Shift and Alt, or Option on a Mac, but Alt is what we're going to click. And what's going to happen here is when I click and drag out, it's going to come out in all directions at the same time. It's a quicker way of doing this kind of work. And so I'm just going to pull this out until it's lined up with my head, and it looks like it's about there. This part's lined up with the left side of my head, and I'm just going to line it up where it's going to be in the actual final picture. And I want it to be just about there so I can see my eye. The other eye is going to be gone eventually. This side is also lined up with the other side of my head. So I'm going to hit Enter. So now the glass is lined up with my head. So I'm going to turn the opacity back up. Now what I want to do is add to my layer mask here. And I want to mask away my head where this basically where this break has happened. What I'm going to do with the glass layer here is I'm going to first of all choose from my blending mode as normal. I'm going to choose screen instead. That's going to make it so I can see my head through the object here. And I'm also going to go to Image, Adjustments, and Invert. And what this is going to do is make the blacks white and the whites black. So now I can see my head through this object, and I can see the little cut symbol here. And I also can't see the black background of the glass anymore, which is nice. And what I want to do is add a layer mask here, and again with a softer brush, maybe like a 50 hardness or so, I'm going to use my black brush on this layer mask on my glass layer. I'm going to name this glass. I'm going to be on my layer mask of the glass layer, and I'm going to erase the part of the wine glass that's sitting on top of my face so that I can see my face through this object. Alright, oh, and I'm going to also erase on my head layer on the mask this little part here too, because that wouldn't show up. There we go. So now, looking like a broken head basically. Go back to my glass layer here and just get rid of this little piece here. Very nice. Alright. Now what we're going to do is on my glass layer, I'm going to make another selection. So I'm going to use my lasso tool, and I'm going to select just the interior of this. So I'm going to go along the broken part here again. Being very careful, and you might want to zoom in to do this. In fact, I'm going to deselect this and zoom in a little bit just so I can see what I'm doing a little better. Make my picture a little bigger. There we go. Alright, so I'm going to go along the broken part again. Just make sure you're staying inside the broken area, the little cracked area. And I'm going to also go this direction on the broken area too. And when I get to this part, I'm actually going to come across and kind of make up an area right here that's been broken, and then come across this part of the glass as well. So now that we have this part selected, what I'm going to do is create what's next to a layer mask. There's this little like black and white half circle here. If I click on this and go to my levels, it made a selection here of just that selection for levels, and it's going to level just the glass part, because whatever this levels layer is on top of, that's what is going to happen, or that's how you're going to change the levels. Now the levels is the darkness and brightness of an object, and so if I grab my middle marker here and just move this down a little bit, I get this area is going to be darkened in, as well as this is going to be darkened in a little bit too. So if I grab the middle one and move it in a little bit, it's going to darken up, and this left one, it's going to darken up even more. So close that, zoom back out, and we've got a broken head here. We got darkness here that makes it look like there's some depth to it. And if you don't like this part right here, where you've made the little breaks or whatever, you can always go in there and erase those parts with the layer mask. So if I take my paintbrush and go in there, I can change this. So maybe I'll smooth this out a little bit, but with a hard edge brush. Just a little bit of depth there, just so we can see the inside of the glass. That's better. And so this is now looking pretty good. Looks like it's ready to save. We got our pretty good glass head composite looking like your head's broken into.